Three, two, one. Let's get this party started. What's going on, friends? It's Mike from Go Cell Phone Repair with the weekly Tech Hangout. That's what's going to be called from now on, because guess what? If you go to YouTube and search for Tech Hangout, this is where you end up. And what's even better is that tonight we have not one, but three people talking tech. Whoops, sorry, guys. I left my volume on. That was brilliant. This guy, how in the world did that happen? All right, so let's get this going. We have Chris Voss from the Chris Voss Show. We have Andy Isom from Learn How Group. And you know what? I'm just going to let you guys tell everybody what you do. Let's start with Chris. Go ahead and jump on here and give us a little background about what you're all about. Because, man, as far as I can tell, you are Mr. Social Media. You are connected everywhere. And one of Forbes' top 50, in fact, I had put that up on the page. I'll let you tell the story. You know it better than I do.
Yeah, I've been a social media kind of influencer, I guess you call me, since I think 2008, 2009, when I first got on Twitter and discovered the platform as a great way to direct traffic. I just did what I do. I build an audience and excel and sell things, market. And that was my background for all the years before that, where I have my own company since I was 18. So, yeah, that's what I do. We have a YouTube channel, and I think I'm on every platform there is known to man, including MySpace.
Including MySpace?
But yeah, that's what I do. Including MySpace. I think I still have an account over there, evidently.
I got to say, man, I'll tell you right now, two things. One, I miss MySpace. I know that everyone hates it. And a long time ago, my friend said, you got to switch over to Facebook. That's a new deal. All the kids are doing that. But man, there was nothing. And it's really funny. I saw a post about this recently. I loved MySpace because you go to your page and your music starts playing. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. You go to someone else's page, you hear their music, you get a little idea about what's going on through their playlist. And I recently saw something on Facebook that we've gone this far in time, guys, that someone posted, wouldn't Facebook be cool if you could put music onto your page? I'm going, we used to do that, man. That's what everybody got tired of, was people designing their own pages because they look, they're all over the place. But I do miss that.
I have a lot of friends I love, but I really hate their music. So I'd probably lose a lot of friends over time.
That is a good point. And one of the reasons I don't put music behind any of my videos, because no matter what you choose, someone's not going to like it. So it's, and I've experienced that firsthand. Andy, I know you've got a very cool looking webpage. You've got Facebook presence, YouTube channel. You are from the Learn How group. I know it might sound self-explanatory, but let us know a little bit about what that is all about.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. First of all, I appreciate you letting me come on your show tonight. So short story, I guess, short background story is maybe like 14 months ago, just over a year ago, I was talking to my grandma who had just gotten an iPhone for the first time. She just adopted the smartphone technology, and she had no clue what she was doing. She didn't know how to do anything, like even the basic setting stuff. So I was, try to help her out. And then just like a couple weeks later, I was actually in Los Angeles in a shuttle to the airport with another lady, and she was talking about how her son has to buy all of her flights online because she doesn't know how to use Google Flights and all this fancy tech. And that was just like kind of my aha moment, like, hey, like I was pretty good at tech, so I wanted to do some how-to videos to help people learn how to use technology to improve their lifestyle. And so that's kind of, I guess, how Learn How started. So that's kind of what I'm up to right now, just as a little side project, is some how-to tutorials.
Cool. And, it's interesting that you mentioned iPhone, because in the phone business, when people come in, and nowadays Samsung has become synonymous with Android, so we have people coming in and saying, hey, I want to get a phone for my grandma, my grandpa, my kids, whatever. Do you recommend Apple or Android? And when they say Android, they mean Samsung, because that's pretty much where everyone's mind goes. And oftentimes we will recommend that they get Apple sheerly based on the learning curve. Usually you hand someone an iPhone And Android's come a long ways, but in the beginning, if you didn't really think about what you're doing, it was a bit more difficult to navigate. I've always kind of compared it to working at a fast food restaurant. You want fries, you click the fries button, right? You want change, you punch in you just press the picture on the screen. And Android has become more friendly that way, but I think it's still, and it's funny that you're saying that, because given that information, still when you hand someone a device that they haven't used before, going from a flip phone to a smartphone, there's quite a bit to learn there. And in fact, it's interesting. I've seen quite several companies that are kind of doing something similar to what you are on your website and through your Facebook and YouTube videos, and that is focus on teaching people how to use all this crazy stuff that we have, especially as rapidly as it changes.
Yeah, I'm going to send my mom to your website. I just spent an hour trying to explain Audible to her and how to use it on her phone. So give me that website again. I'm sending my mom over there.
Yeah, it's learnhowgroup.com. But the funny thing is I found some other similar, like you said, similar websites that were doing like these types of tech how-to tutorials. But the one thing I really didn't like about them was that they were so dry and so bland. And something else that I noticed was that a lot of those channels, they wouldn't show their face. So it was basically just like a screen share, or, even if it was an iPhone screen, it was like them with a camera holding their phone, filming their phone, and you would never see the person's face. And so I just wanted to make sure that my channel, I showed my face. I wanted to add a little more personality, like more of a community, instead of just like a place where people like search how to do this, watch their video, and they're gone. I wanted to try to create more of a sense of community where people would come, get to know me a little bit better, and be a little bit more willing to stick around.
Awesome. Yeah. And there's definitely a better connection there when you feel like you're dealing with a human. And I mean, we all know that YouTube's told us put a face in your thumbnails because that's what people are going to click on, right? I mean, if you just have some symbol or whatever. And I'll tell you guys, when I go through and I'm looking for people to invite to the stream, I want to see a face, because that's going to tell me right off, you don't have a problem talking to the camera. And I keep coming across these videos with, all this tech stuff, and it's like music playing in the background, someone showing a device or a phone or whatever, and there's no dialogue. There's no, there's nothing, dialogue, monologue, there's nobody talking. I'm like, okay, that's not someone who's going to say yes if I ask them to come have a conversation with me, right? And that's not someone that people are going to really want to relate to. So credit for that. Most of most of what I see is more on the brick and mortar side. There are people who have services where they'll go out and teach you something on site. I haven't really seen anything beyond your website where it's like, hey, here's how you use this new technology that's coming out. So props to you on that one. Both of you guys are on Facebook, and I certainly have a question for Andy. Chris, do you like I said, you're all over the place. You've got a podcast, and you're kind of doing something similar to me. You're recording the audio from your streams so that you can put them on your podcast page, which I'm a huge fan of, man. I got to say, as I go through life and become busier, it's so awesome just to be able to turn the sound on, because then you can engage, you can keep doing what you're doing, get things done, you can drive, you don't have to worry about it. And I'm such a huge fan of podcasts now. I have like 3 or 4 I'm addicted to. And now, thanks to you guys, I have 2 more that I have to listen to regularly. I'm going to run out of time pretty soon, but I just clicked that 1.5 speed thing so I can still understand what you're saying and I can learn that much faster. That's awesome.
So so you can have a point of familiarity. Should I talk at this speed? Hey, how's it going? How you
What's funny is I've become, it's not too bad at 1.25 or 1.5, but I have some channels, not you guys by any means. I have some channels I go to and they talk so slowly that I wish there was like a 4X, because then it would be like more my speed. I'm going, come on, get to the point.
I'm going to make a troll podcast episode where I'm just going to talk really slow.
Oh, that'd be great. That would be great. So then I'm going to have to download it and then put it in my editor, put it in my sound editor and speed it up. Or
you know what I should do? I should speed it up to like 2 or 3 times so that when you guys hear it, it'll sound like a chipmunk.
That would be entertaining at the very least.
You guys be like, what the hell's going on? Teach me guys to speak my voice.
Let me real quick say hello to Johnny Chang, Nate's Tech Services playlist. Milk Sosa from Brazil. Hey, hello, Brazil. Awesome. Learn how. Yeah, this is really cool. This is what I love about this, is being able to talk. And to anyone else out there who's not signed in and we can't see you, or you're not participating in the chat, thanks for coming by. I've got some interesting topics. I want to have everyone take this opportunity. If you've got questions about the Chris Voss show and what Chris Voss does, or Andy's website and channel, which is Learn How To Group, ask them tonight while they're here. Now's the time to do it. Beyond that, there have been some interesting things going on, and I'd love to get your guys' take, because here's the thing about this channel. You're going to see a lot of people who do the same thing I do, and for that reason, I often forget that other people watching are going, what are you talking about? So by having you here, I get to say, oh, here's what I'm talking about. So if it makes sense to my guests, then it should make sense to everyone else out there. Before we do that, though, this is the one that always comes up, and I'm going to ask you guys at the beginning instead of the end this time. Andy, I'm going to guess you're using an iPhone just because you started talking about that. So which iPhone, and what made you choose Apple?
Well, that was a really good assumption, I guess, considering I only do iPhone tutorials. It's funny because really quick, I actually get quite a few comments and Facebook messages from people saying, hey, can you do that tutorial for Android? Or can you show me how to do that for Android? I'm like, hey, sorry, I actually don't even own an Android phone. So I've actually been an iPhone user since the beginning. And that seems to be the trend with iPhone users. I mean, Apple kind of sucks you into that, where you kind of get stuck, and they make it hard for you to switch away from iPhone. But I've liked it, and I'm actually using an iPhone 6 right now. I was really hesitant to make the jump to iPhone 7, and now I've been debating for a couple months now on making the jump to iPhone 8 or iPhone 10, but I'm still a little bit on the fence there. So I'm just rolling with my iPhone 6 right now.
Okay, cool. And it's the same, I think, almost across the board with rare exceptions. You start out with iPhone or iOS and you stick with it. Like you said, they don't just make it preference, they make it almost impossible to do so many things if you don't stick within that ecosystem. And that's the thing that we're seeing with the HomePod that just came out last week, is that if you don't have an iPhone or an Apple device to connect to it, you don't use the HomePod. So it's like, if you're choosing our product, you need to choose our supporting products. And I'll dig a little deeper into that. But man, I'm going to be way off probably here. But Chris, possibility that you're an Android user, I'm going to say about 80% chance you're Android.
Yeah. I have an iPad, but yeah, I'm Android. Yeah.
Okay. Now, so what specifically, if you don't mind me asking, what type of handset are you using?
Well, I'm lucky enough to work with AT&T. AT&T provides the phones for the Chris Voss show. So we have the Note 8 sitting here and the Samsung Galaxy S8 Plus. We had the S8 for a while, which is a great phone too. I'd recommend. I think I started out, my first real smartphone was an iPhone 3, I think it was, or the 3. I think it was the second version of the 3. Is it the 3 SE? Was that what it was? Yeah. It's been a long time. And I think I had iPhones up until iPhone 6 and stuff. Okay. And then I had Androids at the same time. Of course, we've had relationships with all the major carriers where we reviewed the phones. So we've always had all of them laying around.
Okay, so guys, there were a couple things I'd love to get your take on, because this is just hitting right now. One of them was announced yesterday. The smartphone chief and ex-CEO of HTC has resigned. If you don't know much about the history of HTC, it's probably because they haven't really done anything big for some time. You know, ever since the HTC Evo, that company has struggled in the smartphone department specifically. Now, their VR stuff is taking off, and I think that what we'll see is them focusing more on that. But there's a lot of talk about the entire handset division going away. As you might know, Google came in a while ago and took about 20% of the people they had working in their department, and it was the best of. So Google, as large companies do, kind of came in and said, we're going to give you a bunch of money for the best stuff that you have, and then just leave you with whatever's left over to try to design handsets. And there's a good possibility that the U12 as soon as that hits. Might be the last HTC. And if there's a lack of interest from either of you, I'll completely understand. HTC doesn't generate a lot of excitement, but your opinion's pretty clear, Chris. Good riddance, so to speak.
The HTC really tried sometimes to make some really good phones. We reviewed all of them since, with AT&T providing them to us since like 2012, and some I did like, but they would do stupid stuff, like they'd make a really brilliant phone, but they put a crap processor in it, or they would put a great processor in it and put a crappy camera in it. And a lot of it too, I think, had come down with advertising budgets. Certainly Samsung worked really hard. And Samsung did copy iPhone. So there's no bones about it. They copied iPhone for a lot of years and helped to bring people over, and they probably put more money marketing behind it. But, I think what it just came down to is there's just not enough oxygen in the room for multiple players to really succeed. It used to be years ago when I went, HTC was a player. There was the Moto phone, the Motorola phones. There was the Razer phones from that Verizon used to like to make. But I think pretty much it's kind of the same reason I predicted that Google Plus was going to fail. I was like, people don't have time for more than Twitter and Facebook and barely LinkedIn. There's not enough oxygen in the room for Google Plus to survive. And I was right in predicting Google Plus's failure. The same is true with HTC. I mean, they made some good phones. The UI kind of sucked and had issues at times. But in the end, I think they were just out marketing, out product. Samsung would just always put out a better cutting edge product over HTC and Motorola, and they just won. And like you say, now when I go in and talk to people at Best Buy and other phone companies, I go, what are people asking for? They're like, there's two colors. There's two, it's like the GOP and the Democrats. There's iPhone, and then there's the Android. People just don't think about anything else, or they think of Samsung when they think of Android, like you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, from a technician's perspective, and a lot of people in this chat will identify with this. One thing about HTC that you'll find is very few people willing to repair them. This is one of the things that we have all, kind of, in one respect, I want to say the same thing. I'm kind of glad they're gone, because that's a nightmare. You never want to disassemble and try to replace a screen on one of their phones, with rare exceptions. There are some that are serviceable. But beyond that, the one reason that I'm not really excited about HTC going away is exactly what you just said. And that is the fact that we're approaching that, if we're not already in that environment where you get choice A and choice B. And ultimately that can't be great for the consumer. And, I try to stay off politics here as much as possible, but if you say you get to go left or right and there is no in between, now you have to go along with a lot of stuff you don't necessarily agree with completely, but it's better this than that. And that's what's really discouraging about this. As we see these two companies grow, and HTC and LG and Motorola all kind of losing market share, if any, or treading water, I'd love to see a third big player come in, and that will be a good transition to the next one, and that is the FBI, CIA, and NSA saying that American citizens should not use Huawei phones, which could have been a real contender had they been accepted within this market. And just recently, Huawei lost a big deal with AT&T, where they were going to start shipping huge amounts of handsets over here for the U.S. carriers. And they are so concerned about, basically a country or a phone coming from a foreign interest in possibly being able to somehow surveil or hack in or keep track of what people are doing. And I'm going to come from way out in left field, Andy, and ask you what you think about all this.
A lot of things came to mind when I heard about that. Something that I thought was interesting is how big of an impact just like one press release or one statement can have on a company. This is going to be like totally out in left field, but the NBC show This Is Us, my wife watches it. I guess like the main dad character dies from like a crock pot or something, and everyone went crazy on Twitter. No, a crock pot It wasn't a crock pot, but a crock pot burns the house down and everyone goes ballistic. And now crock pot is like on the verge of going out of business from this one episode of this TV show.
What is this show called?
This Is Us. It's on NBC.
Okay, I had a straight face until Chris started laughing. When you said crock, somebody died from a crock pot.
I just imagined all the ways you could variances of you could die from a crock pot. Like,
it was a victim of a crock pot explosion.
Crazy. I know it really doesn't have anything to do with phones, but it's just the fact that like something like that can affect a company so much. And something from my perspective is that I see a lot of the older people that watch my tutorials, they're very, very concerned about security and privacy. Some of my most popular videos were on Facebook security and, you know, making sure your profile is private and those types of things. Because I talk to a lot of people that are very, very unsure about their privacy when it comes to tech. And so I could see this as obviously being a huge issue for, you know, a lot of the older generation.
Yeah, if you're concerned about privacy, you probably shouldn't be using a smartphone.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say. It's like you probably shouldn't be on Facebook, period.
Go move to the woods in Oregon in a small cabin and work on a manifesto.
You know, 10 years ago, maybe not even that long, 10 years ago, people would come into the shop and say, hey, man, I think my ex is spying on me through my cell phone. And we'd be like, yeah, sure they are. Okay. I can check for malware, you know, try to look at it. It hasn't been tampered with. I think you're good. Now, there's no question that people can install spyware on it. That's just a given. And, you know, just from the response, it's like, hey, if you're worried about that, you probably shouldn't use a smartphone. And here we are, you know, so it's absolutely a thing. And at the same time, the crock pot kind of illustrates my point. And that is, you know, where do you draw the line? Because right now, and by the way, when the FBI, CIA, and everyone says we advise against that, well, we know what that means. Until it becomes a law, not too many people are going to pay a whole lot of attention to it. But eventually, if they start saying we're going to start blocking Huawei and ZTE and all these companies from bringing phones into the US from outside, well, there's a lot of other smart hardware out there that can do very similar kind of stuff. You know, I mean, we have smart TVs that you can voice control. We've got cameras that are built into several different devices. So when do they start saying, hey, you can only buy American made whatever, you know? That is my concern, because that's definitely going to affect the market.
Yeah, the Huawei thing actually goes back to, if I recall rightly, this has been going on for years, by the way, with Huawei. If I recall rightly, one of the communist generals or higher ups is one of the CEOs of the company. And they did get caught putting in spyware, malware, whatever you want to call it, those backdoor sort of things into their computers and stuff. And so this has been going on for a lot of years with the U.S. government, the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA. I think back to about 2014. There's been congressional hearings on Huawei. And so I don't know why AT&T decided to suddenly pull it out of their butt to bring their phones in. I know they've been trying to make new phones. They've been trying to enter this market for a long time, but the FBI and the Congress and NSA and CIA rebuffed them. Somebody could probably Google my memory, but if I recall rightly, it's one of the Communist Party leaders or generals that runs Huawei, and it's very clearly that they keep finding these little hidden backdoors, like you heard about the NSA was doing from Edward Snowden, where they were, you know, hijacking shipped consoles and then putting specialized chips on them that they could use for spyware. And evidently the Huawei stuff was the same sort of thing.
Right.
And that's why they're recommend anyone use them. And that's why they technically shut down the AT&T deal.
Yeah. We had, about 5 or 6 years back, Huawei lost a huge deal in Australia because they actually do landline equipment, also switching and so forth. And, you know, they had the best bid. They had the stuff that was going to get the job done. And they just, based on the fact that it was a Chinese company that had this history, you know, that you're talking about, that was a deal breaker for them. So, yeah. You know, again, I really want to see this competition in the marketplace. And I have a lot of people who advocate for these companies. They're like, you should try them. You know, they've come a long way. You know, I give Huawei credit. They used to make garbage. 10 years ago, I wouldn't touch any of their phones. And they're trying to step their game up. And I really want to see this competition, but man, this is not going to help. Real quick, guys, I want to go back here to the questions. I kind of let things go a bit and make sure that we haven't left anyone unanswered. Johnny, does any repairman or technician, I think he's talking to the chat there. How can one switch from a Samsung to an Apple without a PC or Mac in between? Are we talking about transferring data, Johnny? Because we have remedies for that. It's not that easy. It can be done. I've struggled with it. Kind of a long question to answer there, unfortunately.
It's actually pretty easy. You buy a Samsung and throw the Apple out a high-rise window.
There you go. That is the simple solution. Also, there was an old TV news about. Let me tell you guys, I struggled back in the day. Now they've made it much easier, but getting your Google account onto your iPhone about 3 or 4 years ago was not as easy as it is now. You had to jump through a few hoops to make that happen. And when I was using my third-party email apps, man, that was kind of a nightmare. But I give them credit; they've cleaned it up quite a bit. News about a Sony TV set emitting a signal that was interfered with a military satellite unintentionally, and the owner got swatted by a military team for looking at it, I guess. Okay. No, it's odd.
I know Samsung had that issue with their TVs or listening, and a lot of people freaked out. But I just laugh anytime says there's privacy or they want privacy when they're using a smart device. It's just kind of laughable. I think I'll have to check here on my iPad, but I know you can use Google Contacts on your phone to record all your contacts into a Google account. I don't know if Google Contacts is available on the iOS system. Does anybody know if Google Contacts is?
Yeah, you can. If you log into your Gmail account on your iPhone, you can synchronize it and get all your contacts there. So they've made that much easier. It used to be.
Yeah, somebody in the chat was talking about that, and there's ways to do it. They're fairly easy.
Yeah, much easier than it used to be. Now that we're on this topic, again, these all kind of tie together a little bit. But I wanted to show you guys something, if I can, here real quick. Oh, actually, let's not jump to that right away. Let's do this other one real quick, and then we'll get into the future of technology. So here's an article that says, "Don't bother." Oh, where'd we go here? Don't bother with Facebook's two-factor SMS authorization unless you love phone spam. So apparently, Facebook has come up with their own 2FA to secure your account. And in the process, when you submit or you ask for this authentication to your Facebook account, they start spamming you with messages to bring you back onto Facebook. And this is one of the things that's always made me insane. When I provide my phone number for some sort of authentication, I expect that phone number is not going to be shared with or used for any other purposes besides what I authorize. And that obviously is not the case. And even to the extent that we found a lot of companies who said they weren't going to share your information, but in fact they do. So when you say, if you're on a smartphone and you expect privacy, even if the terms and conditions say that you should, I agree. It's not realistic anymore to expect that to actually happen.
Yeah, I watched a video recently with a news channel, and they had two phones, and they put one phone into airplane mode, and then they took the other phone, and I believe they turned it off, if I recall rightly, and it still was tracking them through the whole process, where they went. It knew every move they made, every step they took, and what it did is, even though they had it offline, it still tracked the stuff, and then once it came online, it uploaded it.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, there's just no way. I mean, I have some products from a company called, I think, Silent Pocket, and they make these RFID protectors where literally you can take your phone offline. I mean, unless you want to do something like that, but once you turn that phone on again, it's broadcasting information to Google and everything else. And I don't think there's a way out of it. I mean, between the NSA and the FBI and also all the other tracking stuff, I mean, there really is no privacy. Is long gone dead, long time ago, probably back before Zuckerberg ever admitted to it. I think it was 2015 and pissed everybody off.
Oh, when your Facebook was listening to your conversations through the messenger?
Yeah, and stuff. I don't know about the two-factor identification, though, on Facebook. I use two-factor identification on Facebook, and I don't see any spam. I mean, I get text messages when I try and log in, but
well, I'm
not sure
assuming that neither of you guys are experiencing that because Andy, you
I'm
haven't
not.
got it either, right? Because you're a big Facebook user.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen any issues, so I thought that was kind of a funny article.
Yeah, well, maybe it's just someone trying to stir things up. You know, it's
Yeah.
entirely possible. But
I mean,
I
maybe their
will say-
girlfriend hacking into their account, trying to, logging in, trying to check on them and snoop on
Maybe.
them, and they're
Maybe
triggering
so.
they're
That is
triggering
a
the
good
text message to get. I had someone evidently try and hack my account recently, and I was getting text messages that someone was trying to log in on the two-factor authentication. I went, oh.
Good luck, right? Hopefully you have a complex password and a number of other safeguards, I would imagine. So
Yeah.
For anyone who has just joined us, I do want to mention tonight we are talking to, see if I can get this thing to work right. We are talking to Andy Isom from the Learn How group. He's got the Learn How podcast. He's got the Learn How, I think you've actually got to search for his name. I'll put the link in the video description when we finish. If you want to learn stuff, or maybe there's someone that needs to learn things and you don't want to be the one to teach them when it comes to technology, here is an alternative. You can say, you know what, go watch this guy's video, listen to his podcast and learn stuff. And I was telling Andy right before we started that, in fact, I really do go, guys. I go and look at the guests' content because I want to make sure that, this makes sense for everyone to be here. And I've been listening to podcasts from both of these gentlemen. And Andy, the one that stuck out for me was I saw something about selling on Amazon there earlier. And this is, it is a how-to. It's if you want to go into business, you want to do something, or you want to deal with e-commerce at all. One of the things that I have some experience with, and that's selling online to eBay, Amazon, and other platforms. And I got some very useful information, something that hadn't even occurred to me. And that was in order to use Amazon fulfillment instead of shipping the stuff from my house, which is what I'm doing right now. If I can get a bunch of my products and give it to Amazon, and I don't have to worry about anything, like they take care of it. I know I have a good quality product. If there's a problem, I'll return it, take returns, whatever, customer satisfaction. Here's the thing, when it comes to, and this is just my opinion, obviously, everyone's different, but in my experience, I've had a better time being a seller on Amazon and a customer on eBay. And that is because everything that I've experienced shows me that Amazon tends to be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Easy to deal with as a seller. Whereas eBay, if you buy something, they are almost going to err in the favor of the customer most of the time if there's a dispute. So as a buyer, I love buying on eBay. I haven't had exactly that same experience with Amazon. In fact, I'm going to stop right there because I don't want to, endorse or discourage against either or one of those two. But getting back to the point, the whole idea of Amazon fulfillment and the way that you described it, and procuring items out of China and looking into what it takes, almost spending $200 in shipping to get the product here once you figured out what you want to sell, and you go, wait a minute, that's not going to work. This is a factor I wasn't thinking about. And I had the same experience. And it's really funny because when you deal with Chinese vendors, some of them will charge you DHL, it's $30 for a package this big. And yet a lot of them will ship China Post, which is completely free shipping as long as you don't mind the slow boat method, which means you're talking about a 60 to 90 day turnaround from the time you order. So obviously order far in advance. In addition to that, we are talking to Chris Voss. Let me go ahead and get your deal up here. I think I've stopped presenting there. Let's go over here. We have Chris Voss from the Chris Voss Show, and I'm not going to be able to change this slide, am I? Yeah, there we go. So Chris Voss has all sorts of stuff. He's got a podcast, which is going to be part of his YouTube channel, I'm guessing, because I watched some of your videos. I saw that you had duplicated that content in audio format, which I really appreciate, because when I'm on the go, I can't be staring on a screen. You've got product reviews. You've got a travel blog. I mean, all sorts of stuff. Everyone who wants to check this out, please, before you, when we finish at least, go back to, oh, did I just shut that off? Let's get that back on screen. So go check these guys out. They have all sorts of stuff. And Chris, your social media reach is pretty crazy. I don't think I've seen a page that had so many links going to everything that's out there. including
Yeah.
MySpace.
I have a lot of Twitter accounts. I think overall between that and LinkedIn, there's like 400,000 audience.
400,000, nice. Well, you are all about it. All right, so let's go over here to the chat real quick. Using your phone number for 2FA is a massive risk. People have lost fortunes in crypto because of phone hacking. Yeah, and in fact, a few people have had their YouTube accounts hacked recently because of that. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one, but T-Mobile had a little trouble with customer service reps changing SIM cards on customers' phones so that the person who had the new SIM card and was posing as whoever, this big YouTube person, was able to use their 2FA to get into their YouTube channel and make changes, which is really scary. I mean, you tell employees, don't give this stuff out. It's clearly spelled, this is the procedure. And then you have someone probably thinking that they're doing their job by keeping the customer happy in some way. When you have that human element, this is always a possibility. And that concerns me a bit. I don't have T-Mobile, but I suppose that narrows it down just by saying that. But yeah, it's
the problem. The alternative is, though, if you've ever seen a hashing program that does password hashing, where it basically hammers, passwords through a sequencer, and they can, and I've seen one process, I don't know what the number was, but it seemed like hundreds of thousands or millions of passwords that it hashed. I've seen, there was one password I think I saw that it was hashed in about 30 seconds. So, there are people who can get, I forget what they're called, but they're phone emulators where they can emulate your phone number. I think they're very sophisticated or expensive to get a hold of, but there's that. And of course they can play human error where they call one of the services. And like you say, change the SIM card. In fact, if I remember, there was an article a couple years back or a year back where one of the major reporters who, had openly talked about Bitcoin and the fact that he owns it, someone targeted him, and they did that. And he watched the whole thing go in live across his phone. Your SIM card has been changed. This person is, you've accessed your account. He literally watched them steal the money through all the notifications that he was getting. And I think it was a good amount of money. But if you have Bitcoin or crypto money, you may not want to popularize the fact of how much you have in the account, because you're probably going to make yourself a target on the dark web. It's crazy. I live here in Las Vegas, and I have friends that go to the is it DEF CON, where all the hackers go to it. And I went one year, and my friends I went one year, and my friends do not bring your phone. Take your phone, take the battery out of your phone, take the SIM card out of your phone. I put it in an RFID blocker protector, because people will be pinging you trying to get in.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, they actually set up a fake ATM machine at that conference. Wheeled it in on a dolly, set it up, and they were obviously skimming passwords and magnetic strips, set the thing up there for a day, and did it as a demonstration. So fortunately, it wasn't really someone trying to take this stuff, so they say. But people walk up to an ATM, and if it's, and no one questions the guys in uniform walking in with the hand truck. Oh, we're just setting up for this convention, it's just an ATM machine.
Even here in Las Vegas, they had somebody inserted some overrides into some of the credit cards for the gas stations. They have those. If you've seen it, they're real popular in Europe. They have these systems that mount over the front mouth of where you put your card in, and it looks like a part of the machine. And you put it in, and it's stealing your information right as you're working with it. Same thing with RFID theft, which is really big in Europe. You have the guys just sitting in an airport with these specialized programs in a briefcase, and they're just stripping off data from people's Bluetooth and everything else as they walk by.
Crazy. Yeah, they've also got another thing now called ATM jackpotting, where they will pull up to an ATM could be a 7-Eleven or Safeway or anything like that, and they look official, and they throw some cones down and say, we're here to service the machine, and they will put some programming in. And I don't know, apparently quite a few ATM machines out there are still running Windows XP. So, by now they figured how to get into this stuff. And this is typically how it goes. A lot of times when we're dealing with banks, and dare I say government, and, even in some cases, large corporations, they become so antiquated, and I don't know why, but they never upgrade. And it's like, man, you can drive a bus through the security holes that you guys have in the stuff that you're running to handle money. You know, it could be $40,000, $50,000 in those machines at any given time, no problem. And we're running Windows XP, which is crazy. Real quick, John. Hey, John Cassidy, how's it going? Do I wish I was in the screen wholesale business? I'm going to come back and answer that later. Right now, not particularly. I kind of wish I was in the refurbishing business. But gentlemen, before I ask you my next question that I have for you, I want to show you something. And I've got to present it here. So every once in a while, which is, almost every week, we like to talk about what we're looking forward to in the way of technology, because we know what's here. But of course, the big question is, what is the next thing? And I've always kind of had my money on this one right here. So let's see if I've got this trimmed. I might not have done it properly, but you'll be able to see the image. So this is what I foresee happening. Am I presenting here? There we go. So look at this, guys. This is Shaq, okay? And for the longest time, I have been saying this is sort of what not exactly what I had envisioned, but walking around with the device in your hand that you have to hold in front of your face, that basically you're limited to using one other arm. You have to take your eyes off the road. You have to take your eyes off the conversation. Somehow, unless they start building this stuff into our brains physically, it makes sense that to have some, a heads-up display where you can see what you're interacting with has got to be a little more practical than this. This is obviously a bit of a stretch. This looks like something out of a steampunk illustration or something. But I suspect that the next generation, and they're saying, expect this within the, next 10 years or so. And I don't have a hard time believing this, that handsets, cell phones, smartphones as we know them today, have to evolve quite a bit. And that is kind of along the lines of what I'm envisioning. I'm not saying this is the most exciting thing for me, because when it gets to the day, we come to the day where we're standing face to face, and I don't know if you're looking at me or a little display inside of a lens that's in front of your eyes. I'm not sure that's something I'm ready for, but it does seem like the next evolution in smart technology when it comes to communications. Andy, I want to start with you. If there's something that's exciting, in your opinion, and coming down the line later on, and you can't wait to see it when it comes to technology, what are you looking forward to?
Well, first of all,
and
that
Chris,
picture you showed.
I see you chuckling over there. Sorry to interrupt. I see you chuckling, Chris. Let's keep it clean, man, okay? This is an all-ages group. Sorry, go ahead, Andy.
First of all, I actually saw a really cool TED Talk about that VR, like the glasses, and the guy gave a really cool presentation, kind of what you were just talking about replacing handsets with glasses and VR and that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's definitely going to be something that'll be interesting to see. But for me personally, I am really curious to see how self-driving cars play out at a mass scale. I mean, you already see there's people say, yeah, they already exist. Okay, we get that. But I'm talking every single car is a self-driving car. You're driving down the freeway and everyone's changing lanes and everything's just flowing automatically. When that day comes, I'm really curious to see how that works out.
And aside from the fact that anyone who drives for a living will be looking for a new job, I assume.
Right. And they also...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, there's all sorts of talk about how, I don't know the exact percent, but a really large percent of the working force is involved with driving a vehicle, whether that's, 18-wheelers or trucks or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, when that day comes, there's going to be some serious economic problems too for a lot of people. So it'll be really interesting to see how all that plays out.
You know what comes up every time, and man, looking at the statistics, I'm in favor, okay? Yes, they're not perfect. And every time I have this conversation with most people, I say self-driving cars, it's coming. They go, well, I'm not sure I trust that. I don't want a machine taking over or making decisions. Here's the thing. We already know it's far more safe than the average driver across the board. And if these cars start communicating with each other, it's going to be even safer because they're aware of what's coming and what's going, and you can optimize your route and everything. However, there are quite a few things that they're not really able to identify yet. And I think that's the big concern. You know, we can tell the difference between a paper bag and a concrete block, you know, and we can look at the side of a big white truck and tell that that's not the sun. That is indeed an 18-wheeler. And we need to be able to differentiate those things. So I'm sure that has a ways to go before it becomes, you know, realistic for everyone to have self-driving cars. But it's hard to argue the fact that they are safer drivers than us. Of course, that does open up the whole ethical question of, if you have to choose between running into a brick wall, running over a child, or running off the road, you know, down a cliff, like how does the car decide what that's going to be, right? That's the big question, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Depends on if the child is good or not.
That's terrible.
It keeps a list of Santa's. It keeps Santa's list of bad and good. So,
well, you know, we were talking last week. I don't know if you guys saw the episode, or if you've watched Black Mirror at all. They have an episode where people walk around with the badge that shows their ratings according to the number. This is a futuristic look, kind of like a Twilight Zone, you know, a modern day Twilight Zone, where, you know, people live in this society where you get a rating. Every time someone sees you, they give you a vote. You know, they rate you, and you walk around with that badge on all the time. That might solve that problem, Chris. You know, you could just check their badge real quick and see how valuable they are.
I think all of my ex-girlfriends would ruin my rating. They would troll the hell out of it. I'd be up, isn't it? I'd be up for the purge, I think, at that point, or something. I don't know.
Is a self-driving car in an accident is typically because of a human has crashed it. Playlist. Yeah, I would agree. Or there's something missing from the programming or the parameters that they didn't put in. So, yeah, in many cases, they say that the only mistakes that machines make are the shortcomings of the people that built them, right? To a certain extent. We have a long way before reaching the sophistication of Geordi LaForge visor from Star Trek: The Next Generation. But Apple and HTC are trying to change that right now. And it's going to be kind of freaky if we're all walking around with these visors. Things become obsolete because if they ain't broke, there's no need to replace or fix because of certification cost issues. True. Have I fixed an iPhone 8 yet? John Cassidy, I'm going to take one apart just for you. I'm going to take apart this iPhone 8 Plus this week because someone else asked me that same question. We're going to find out. Chris, brand new technology you can't wait to see. Not the stuff you're afraid of. Not the stuff that, well, you know, fair enough. Concerned about or excited for, either of the above or both.
Number one is sex robots. Number two, I am excited for self-driving vehicles. With the Magic Leap stuff, you know, I had Google Glass early on. I really enjoyed the experience. I actually miss my Google Glasses. Mostly what I miss about my Google Glass was being able to take first-person shots without having to hold a camera. So interacting with my dogs, which are like my children, you know, not having, anytime I lift up the camera, in fact, one of my dogs was so smart that when I lift up the Canon camera to take a cute picture of her, she would see the red light that was going to focus the camera, and she would turn away from it because she knew she was going to get blasted with the flash.
Wow. Makes sense.
And so be able to have those first person, I have a lot of great videos, and it was great video for the Google Glass, but you know, no one's getting laid wearing the Google Glass, and I doubt anyone's going to get laid wearing that Magic Leap outfit. It just looks freaky. Like you say, it looks very steampunk, but you know, I just don't know after the Google Glass debacle and trying to figure out a way for us to get from this handset to some sort of projection. And it may be some sort of HUD experience where it's, I like the heads-up display stuff that you're seeing in cars now. And there's vendors that are bringing, at CES, we saw vendors that are bringing even third-party HUD displays where you can mount this thing on your dashboard and it will give you a HUD display. That would be really cool. Somewhere that merged with the Google Home sort of experience. I love that I can turn my lights on and off with Google Home. In fact, here in this room, I haven't touched a light switch in a million years. I just command the lights on and off. So being able to say, hey, device, HUD device, phone, goggles, make this post for me on Facebook and include this link, and being able to talk to it, I think that would be really awesome. We'll see where that goes. I don't know what the correct delivery of that technology is to what's going to ever move us away from cell phones. I don't know. I mean, I guess we're going to have to see. Maybe Magic Link has the answer. Maybe they don't. I don't know.
Yeah, there's actually another company. The picture that I showed, and I should have saved the image. There's another company we talked about 2 weeks ago, and I think it starts with a V. It's Vision or Visox or something like that. And they've got a pair of smart glasses that look more like a regular pair of sunglasses, number one. Secondly, there is no camera. And this seemed to be one of the big hangups for Google Glass, because as we saw, the public really reacted negatively to being photographed anywhere, which, you know, whether or not it's okay legally really doesn't matter. You know, when you stick a camera in someone's face, you're going to get a certain type of reaction. So that was one of the things I think that really, besides looking really nerdy, you know, having this little thing hanging down off the front, they have a pretty stylish looking pair of sunglasses that are in fact smart glasses. And the other thing is that they had figured out a way to make the battery last throughout the entire day, which was the other concern. You know, how would you walk around with smart glasses? Because there's not much room for a battery in them. And they're still slightly more bulky, I think, than most people would like them to be, but surprisingly slim profile. And that my thinking was, you know, you've got to have, if you're going to integrate machine with man, it's not practical to have this huge headset that you've got to, you know, turn on and crank anything. You got to just be able to take them off like a pair of sunglasses. And if you want to use them, you put them back on very casually. Maybe they adjust indoors so you can wear them inside and out. And when you don't want them, you just take them off and put them in the case like anything else. And there are actually two different companies. One of them is Intel. They're actually working on a project like that right now as well. And I should, if I had a bit easier way to use this browser, I'd pull it up right now. But it looks like we're getting close to that in the near future. Whether or not people will adopt it, I think that's the big question. And I don't want to dig into the gory details, but the interesting thing about the sex robots or robotic companions, or however you'd like to call them, is that almost every conversation I've heard in respect to this technology from, in most cases, from a female's perspective is, well, that's, you know, very negative, not favorable whatsoever. And it really got me thinking, you know, if a part of society decides to not have a companion that's human, that is for most practical purposes going to put you out of the reproduction pool. So that number of that part of society, if and when that ever happens, they're probably going to naturally deselect themselves from procreation, I guess you could say. So that makes me wonder also what the long-term outcome will be in that respect. And not to mention,
well, the millennials are already doing it naturally. The millennials aren't reproducing up to scale naturally. Millennials and Gen Y. So that's already happening on its own without sex robots.
Well, they're also not buying cars and apparently using drugs or alcohol as much as their predecessor. So that's another interesting thing, that when you get on the subject of millennials, which is parallel to what we're talking about, of course.
And I think a lot of it has to do with their relationship with phones and social media and this facade of reality that people think that real life is Facebook and everything else. And they have a deeper relationship. I mean, we've all seen the same things. I go out to a restaurant and I'll see a family of 4 or however many, and everyone's looking at their phones. No one's talking. No one knows how to have a relationship. What they found is a lot of millennials or Gen Xers really struggle with having intimate or normal relationships with people because, you know, they're so used to communicating through a phone that when they actually hang out with a person in real time, they have no idea how to deal with that sort of thing because they're so crippled by what they've adapted to.
Good point. And in fact, Andy, I want to call you in one more time on this one because you're probably slightly closer to millennial age than Chris or myself are. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this whole phenomena of people just kind of locking more into electronic devices, and how that affects us socially.
I think it is interesting. I think it's true what Chris said, that you go out to eat and you're out in public, and you'll see a couple, I'll say a young couple like me, and they're both just like looking at their phones. Something that I think is interesting though, going into gaming and how big esports are becoming, I do think it's interesting that I feel like parents, at least when I was growing up, to be a good parent was to tell your kids to not play video games. And it was like, I don't know, it was frowned upon to play video games. And my parents like resisted letting us have video games for a long time. But I think it's interesting to think about with where esports is going for millennials and the younger generation. They have a real opportunity to, create a career for themselves through gaming and esports. And I don't know. I think it's something. Yeah, like there's a lot of opportunity, like for people who are just tech savvy that way. I think there's a lot of there can be some social negatives with it, but I think there's a lot of positives and a lot of opportunities for millennials through this type of technology, whether they are maybe immersed in it a little more than we think is correct. So like they're playing video games longer than we think they should be. Hey, if that gives them the opportunity to create a life that, they can provide and be successful, maybe that's the best option for them.
Maybe that is the future of humanity. We're all locked into machines 18 hours of the day when we're not sleeping. I don't know, man. Kind of hope I'm not around.
Have you watched the Boston Dynamics recent robotics video of the
guys? I've been watching them for a while, and I emailed them immediately. I'm looking for press because their press pack, because I want to have this discussion, but I don't want to just go grab their content and deal with fair use and stuff. But man, they recreated that dog. Once again, if you haven't watched the Black Mirror episodes, that's the kind of stuff they're showing, is people being chased down by those kind of robots. And it's freaky that they almost made the exact thing that was basically a horror show, where these dogs, look like a dog pretty much running around chasing people. Crazy.
Every time I see that any Boston Dynamics video, I literally have the Terminator soundtrack looping through my head. Dun dun dun.
It is crazy, man. But I'm gonna try to get. I'm still trying to get a hold of them because I'd love to discuss that. I don't want to keep you guys longer than you intended on being here, so you're free to stick around. If you have to take off, totally understood. I want to say thank you so much again for taking time out of your day. I know that time is money, so I owe you. Everyone who is still here or just came on, we have Chris Voss and Andy Isom from the Chris Voss Show and Learn How Group. You should definitely check them out. I'll put their links down in the video description. Give me about, give me till tomorrow, and I'll put links down in the video description so that you can have some timestamps to work with. And their websites are already there. You can find them very easily. Andy, if you had to take off, I know you said around 7 o'clock you had to go. And Chris, if you have to take off, no problem. If you want to hang around for a little while, I'm going to answer some questions and keep the discussion going a little bit longer.
Sure, I'd love to.
I got to take off because I got another appointment. But yeah, once again, thanks so much for letting me come on the show and chat with you guys a little bit. It was fun. I learned a lot. I'm not the most, tech savvy when it comes to the hardware, I guess, but I'm learning, so and I'm enjoying it.
All right, well, everyone, check out Andy's channel, especially if you have people in your life that you don't want to have to walk through how to set up their phone and use their applications and log into Facebook and whatever else there may be, what do we have? We have Snapchat and Instagram, but something else is coming soon. I'm sure that's going to make those, that's at this point, people are telling me this sounds really bad, but a lot of people told me, oh, Facebook. Yeah. Like my grandparents are on that. I don't go on Facebook anymore. I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on. Am I that far behind already? I'm still loving MySpace, but no one's there anymore. So,
but
Andy.
Yeah. Appreciate it. We'll see ya.
All right. Take it easy. Real quick on the questions here. Let me make sure that if there's anything directed at you, I want to make sure they get them. We're talking about frame replacement. A sad consequence of today ubiquity of social media and devices is that everyone wants to shine the limelight, doing good or evil deeds like yesterday shooting in Florida. Yeah, and that's the thing that really concerns me, is that the narcissism that seems to foster in social media in general. And when you see someone who you think, wow, it's a good thing criminals aren't very smart, because you see all these crimes being live streamed onto Facebook, and that's how they end up catching the people that are perpetrating a lot of these crimes. It's really crazy. There was one back here a second ago. Someone said about puppies. What are we talking about puppies here, guys? Oh, have a nice evening to everyone. Happy Chinese New Year to all. Don't be mean to puppies during this year. Let me tell you something. If you're going to be mean to puppies, just go ahead and click the little X box on your browser window and go away and never come back. Because if you're being mean to puppies, I don't want to talk to you or with you. Outside of that.
Is there a bit of irony in that? Because in China, they do eat dog from time to time. So maybe they should take their own advice.
I think that I don't think that that's too much of a thing, particularly in China, but it could be. I mean, there are some areas in lots of parts of the world, no, seriously, where people eat whatever they can. I see what you're saying, but is it the year of the dog? I'm imagining that's why.
Probably.
I should be keeping track of this. Yeah, I don't think there's too much of that going on in China. North Korea.
There's actually a big event they have in China every year where they butcher and sell dogs. It's very popular still.
Well, let's click next on that page, and let's get back to you, Chris. So you've been reviewing products on YouTube for quite a while.
Yeah. In fact, one of your friends in the chat is saying the Japan birth rate is declining. So I'd like to apologize for that. And I'm sorry I haven't been spending as much time in Japan. Well,
if it makes you feel better, it is another issue with millennials, and that is the birth rate falling in the U.S. as well. So it's not just Japan by any means.
Well, I'm trying to do the best I can, but seriously, I'm just one guy, and there's a lot of women.
It's funny. You're in Vegas. I was in Vegas for about 10 years up until 2009. I love Las Vegas. And
Cool.
If it wasn't for a real estate crash and a number of other things, I'd probably still be there.
That's true. It's a wonderful town. Hopefully it'll stay that way. I don't know. We're having a lot of changes that are putting pressure on the real estate market to prices that go up, like the Raiders coming here and everything else. So I moved back from California to here for the better home prices, and hopefully that will last. But yeah, you were mentioning about my channel. I do a lot of reviews. My dogs are on the channel. It's kind of a mishmash of everything. It's we review a lot of products and gadgets. My podcast is hosted on there. I used to do an video podcast on iTunes because it will accept video as well, but Google Play won't accept video podcasts. So I had to be forced to put them both on audio. But in essence, no one's really looking at this face. I mean, come on, look at this. Does anyone really want to look at this face for an hour?
To be fair, I suspect that the podcast audience chose podcasts for a reason, and it's hopefully nothing to do with our faces, but it is what it is. As long as someone's listening, I'm happy about that.
Well, people have told me for years that they don't ever watch my videos. They listen to them. Same thing with podcasts. They watch them as they're driving their car, listen as they're driving the car. They listen as they're doing chores around the house, vacuuming. I don't know if anybody's listening while they're being intimate with their partner, but that would be interesting if they were. I mean, hey, I'm not going to complain. Whatever thing you're doing to consume my media, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate it.
Well, you're certainly easy enough to find, man. So everyone, Chris Voss, the Chris Voss Show, choose your social media platform, and your chances are you're going to find him there. Just curious, are you on Instagram also?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I'm on pretty much every platform as Chris Voss, sometimes Chris Voss 1.
Okay.
But yeah, I try and lock in my name on every new platform that comes out.
Gotcha.
Including MySpace.
Including MySpace. That's awesome, man. I used to love MySpace. They had to drag me away from MySpace, man. I love that. Mainly for my own entertainment, to be honest. When I went to my page and heard my playlist and saw my photos in a little water, carousel thing going around, that got me excited. I'm easy to entertain. There was one other thing, and it just escaped me. So no worries about that. In any case, I think it is time to roll out. Thanks again for coming on, Chris. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Anyone who wants to find Chris Voss, definitely use the link down below the video, because there's a good chance you're going to come across a Chris Voss imposter, because apparently that's the thing to do. So watch out for this. This is the Chris Voss you're looking for right here, not the other dude, because I don't know who that is or why he, with so few subscribers, comes up at the top of the search results. Doesn't make any sense.
He's actually an FBI agent who wrote a book. I guess I got to get a book out to beat him. He's a nice guy from all whatever understanding, but yeah, he's not helping himself or me. We're not helping each other, copying each other's names. But I was the original big Chris Voss, and
okay,
and
so he came in last.
Yeah, I thought of hiring a hitman to take him out for SEO Google purposes, but he used to work with the FBI, so probably has friends. So I had to cancel the hitman order.
Yeah, probably watching. He's probably listening to your podcast, waiting for that signal to come through. Know that you're about to make a move.
Probably, he's probably got a hitman thing. He's probably got a CIA agent who's gonna be like, "Hey, does this rag smell like chloroform to you?"
Yeah, exactly.
So one of us is gonna win that battle, I guess.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I've enjoyed this, Chris. Lots of fun, man. You got a new subscriber on your podcast, at least one. That's me. I'm sure many will follow.
You're the only one.
Let's stay in touch. What's that?
You're the only one at this point, I think. And now is a subscriber of one.
Yeah, right. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks again. Thanks, everyone, for coming by and checking it out. I'll be back on Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and we'll be announcing some new guests. Actually, I have confirmation we are going to have, oh boy, I'm about to pull up her name and add that to the video description because I'm going blank. Shannon Morse from Hack 5 will be joining us next Thursday evening. That's right. Okay. All right, Chris, have a good evening, man, and take it easy in Vegas. I'll hit you up next time I'm heading that way, and
sure.
We'll have some drinks and talk about things off the record.
Sounds good, buddy.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right. You too.